Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the 4th of June, 2024, and you're asking yourself, what are we going to do today? Well, I've got great news. We're going to make cream of mushroom soup out of just a few ingredients. Cream of mushrooms will take mushrooms. It'll take onions. It'll take salt and pepper. It'll take a seasoning salt. It'll take some chicken stock. It'll take some half and half or whipping cream if you've got it. And it'll take a little bit of flour. We're going to mix all that together and we're going to make up what is arguably the best cream of mushroom soup on the planet. And here's why I say that. I'll tell you a little story. Many years ago, the very first time that I went out for dinner with my wife, I took her out to a place called Stuart Anderson's Steak House, and it was a marvelous meal, marvelous steak dinner. We had a great time. It was the 1st of October, and I remember that because my credit card that I pulled out to pay for the meal had expired on September 30th, and I felt a little stupid. So I reached in and grabbed another one, which also was expired on September 30th. So I grabbed my third choice. It was not expired on the 30th of September. It expired on the 31st of August, a month earlier. So I was sitting there with a beautiful young lady who I just treated to dinner, and now I had to ask her to loan me enough money so we could get out of the restaurant. And I have to admit that later on, she confided in me that at that particular time, she wondered whether or not I was spousal material or if I was just a freeloader. Well, I told her I'd pay her back, and I did the next day. And then I told her to make it up for her, I wanted to have her come over to my house and we'd have cream of mushroom soup. She immediately thought of the only kind of cream of mushroom soup she'd ever had, which was Campbell's, and later confided in me, but at that point she was pretty sure I was not the guy for her. But I invited her over and I made a baked chicken in a pearl onion white gravy with this cream of mushroom soup on the side. And it was amazing, as far as she said. And later she confided in me once again that at that time, on that night, I went from being potentially a zero gotta go to a potential spouse material, a candidate as it were, and ultimately she did marry me. So a couple of lessons there. First of all, don't forget to check your credit card expiration dates if you're taking people out for dinner. Second thing is if you're looking for lifelong companionship, it doesn't hurt to know how to cook. That will draw friends to you pretty quickly. And the third thing is that this particular soup, cream of mushroom soup, is a miracle working soup. I mean, it worked a miracle for me. Got me out of the you won't do bucket and put me right into the I do bucket. So all that worked out pretty well. What are we going to do to put this together? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chop up a little onion because we've got to have some onions along with our mushrooms to give it the proper flavoring. I'm going to take off this outside skin because, I don't know, I'm prejudiced. I don't like it. Now, I'm going to show you how to cut the onions up for this thing. And I want you to watch carefully as my fingers never leave my hand. I'm going to go through in this direction here. Notice what I'm doing. I'm putting, now this is a little bit bad. I shouldn't be chopping down. I should be doing this. But the point is that you can see that the knife is up against my finger here. And so I've got some gap here. And if I just move my finger back, I get the same lovely slices every time. And like I say, you don't lose your fingers. And that's a very handy thing if you're going to be doing any cooking. Now you go across this way. We don't want big strings of onions. We want it a little more diced, chopped. You see this here? Don't be too worried about it, though, because they'll all turn into soup. And everybody will eat it and everybody will love it. So don't sweat the details. So there we have the onions. We're going to pass those back. We're going to take this out. It's an enamel-covered cast iron pan, and they are just fantastic for making soups and stews. it'll work in any pan. I mean, certainly you can do it in a frying pan if you want. I've done it in a saucepan, easy. But if you want to have good soup cooking supplies, good soup cooking tools, something like this is very handy to have. Now you're going to have some butter. Here's a stick of butter right here. This weighs 4 ounces, which is what, 8 tablespoons? Whatever it is, it's one of these sticks. Take it out of the wrapper. Don't leave any wrapper in there because that tastes terrible in your soup. And then fire this mother up. I happen to have a little weakness in one of my stoves here in that it doesn't always light. So I'm going to just move my onions out of the way here and then turn this burner on. Poof! You get a little explosion. That's always nice. We're going to take this down pretty low. We're going to put it high for just a moment or two to get the pan rolling. I want the butter to start melting. But then after that, we're going to start this thing out over, I'd say a medium-low to a low heat. So let's turn it down right there. There's your medium. There's your low. So halfway between, it's probably medium-low. That's what I think. Now, take your knife and scrape your onions right in the pan along with the butter. You can stab the butter if it makes you feel good and spin it around a little bit just to coat the bottom. It'll all be fine. Now, as you wait for the butter to melt, you're going to need to get yourself a fork for fooling around with this thing like this. I might just give it a little more heat. She's doing slow. I should have melted the butter before I started because there's nothing exciting about watching a bar of butter melt. It's just not prime video. I'm going to cut it up a little bit so it goes a little faster. Now once I get the butter melted down, I'm going to throw in the mushrooms. And I bought the pre-sliced mushrooms. These are just your regular button mushrooms, nothing big. You can make the stuff out of almost any kind of mushrooms and mixtures of mushrooms, portobellos and mushrooms and shiitakes or buttons and shiitakes and others. Make good flavor combinations together, but I often just go with the standard run-of-the-mill mushroom out of the grocery store. They're not very expensive and they really make a fantastic soup. Now, I'm going to do a little something here on the side. I'm going to take about, I'd say that many mushrooms out of the thing. I'm going to bring it over to my cutting board, and I do dearly apologize. I don't have a cutting board on camera all the time. I don't have very many cameras, and I don't have much room. So that's the way it is. What I'm doing, though, is I'm smashing these mushrooms up pretty fine. I'm going to show them to you in a minute, but I'm just mincing them down pretty fine because what I want is some of the mushrooms to begin turning into the soupy stuff right away. There they are. You can see them now. They're just chopped up. It just aids in getting the mushrooms a little bit more well dissolved in there. Now you can see the butter starting to get warm. See what I got there? Now you'll find that this little combination here, onions, butter, and mushrooms, are just a fantastic combination for a lot of different things. Cream of mushroom soup is one. There goes the rest of the mushrooms in. Cream of mushroom soup is one of the things that it's good at, but it's fantastic in things like pork chops with mushroom gravy, or even in things like beef-based stews. They're very tasty, very tasty. And what you'll find once you get this thing going, the cream of mushroom soup, is it serves as a base for a lot of other things too. Mushrooms have, these mushrooms in particular, not all mushrooms of course, there are so many different kinds and flavors, but these mushrooms are relatively mild. They've got a pretty delicate flavor, which means that whatever you use to season the stuff is what's going to carry the dish. So it can be a sauce for your pork, for your beef. You can turn the same soup into a sauce that goes with your vegetables. It can be even a dipping sauce of some sort for chips or for crackers and things. Lots of stuff you can do starting off with this. Now let's put some seasoning into this thing and see if we can't give it a little bit of pizzazz. Now, I'm going to use salt and pepper. I'm going to take about less than a teaspoon of salt and sprinkle it in. And then I'm going to take my pepper mill. Always use fresh ground pepper if you can get it. It tastes much better. And I'm going to put some pepper on top as well. Now you can see I like to make a nice little layer of pepper. I think pepper is an excellent seasoning, especially fresh pepper to go along with mushrooms. Can you see that? Yeah, I'll put some more in there. Now the third thing I'm going to put in is a seasoning mix. It's a seasoning salt or a seasoning mix. This one is called Grandma Vern's All-Purpose Seasoning Mix. The original celebrated Grandma Vern's All-Purpose Seasoning Mix. You probably can't get it because it's only available in a couple of small stores in northern Minnesota, and from the guy who owns the recipe and who sells it to his friends. I'm trying to convince the guy to go online so that we can order it and have it delivered. He's not there yet, but if he does, I will tell you immediately where you can find it. The reason I use this stuff is it's just a fantastic mix of flavors that accents the mushrooms. Now I've got about a tablespoon here. I'm going to just go a little lighter than that. There's 3/4 of a tablespoon. I'm going to sprinkle that on and see what it looks like. Oh, that looks splendid. I think we're just going to do about 3/4 of a tablespoon will be our number for this recipe. So I've got salt and pepper. Let's recap. Started with butter, onions, mushrooms, some chopped, some just sliced. Salt and pepper, Grandma Vern's seasoning. I'm going to get myself a wooden spoon or a wooden stick because they make me happy. And I'm going to stir this up a little bit. You see? Now I've got some nice broth coming together there, down the bottom. Oh yes, see? There's the butter and the juices from the mushroom. We'll mix this just a little further. We want to get the mushrooms nice and tender. And then once we do, we're going to whisk in a little bit of flour for thickening. And then we're going to pour in some chicken broth. And then ultimately, we're going to put in a little half and half to finish it off. So let's get the utensils I need. You're going to have a wire whisk of some sort. You're going to have a measuring scoop of some sort. We're going to use about probably 2 tablespoons maybe of this. We're going to measure it out as we go, or we're going to look at how it affects the soup as we put it in. But it's about 2 tablespoons. Now you can see there's a little broth coming down in the bottom there, some good butter. That's what we want on the bottom so that we can mix in our flour, because we want to make kind of a roux out of it. What's a roux? It's not a kangaroo. A roux is a sauce made of flour and butter, and I think they put some milk in there too. Anyway, it's a gravy kind of a thing. And this is looking pretty good as far as the gravy kind of thing goes. Before we get that going, and this is an important thing to understand, once you get this flour in here and get that started, you're going to need some liquid right away. You don't want to spend a whole lot of time not putting liquid in your cream of mushroom soup, because what will happen is that flour, when you put it in there, it'll get all goopy and yucky, and it'll be nasty, and then you won't be able to recover. If you do, you have the distinct possibility that you're going to have some lumps in your soup, and that's horrid. You don't want lumps in your soup. That's a sign of an amateur, of someone who doesn't give a damn. Okay, so I've got chicken stock. I got about 2 cups here. Don't put it in yet. Do not put it in yet. Put it aside. Now, get yourself a scoop, a nice scoop of flour, sprinkle it where the water's at, and then stir it up nice. Try to get it all mixed in. Try not to have any chunks laying around. Now take another one, do the same thing. Now do you see what I mean about it thickening up? She's getting really thick, and we're going to have to immediately go in here with the chicken stock. See how that works? Otherwise, you risk getting lumps of flour if you let that cook too long. You'll have cooked little pieces of doughy bread stuff in your soup, and that's That's disgusting in a cream of mushroom soup. Now, take a look at what we got here. Now, we got your mushrooms and your onions. They're cooking right along. And I did turn this back up to high and left it there. I think we can turn it back down again. Or not high, it was on medium high. But unfortunately, I didn't get done ahead of time melting the butter, and I didn't want to have you guys sit here and wait for a half an hour to watch the pan heat up. That's boring television there, boys and girls. Okay, so we got something going on. Now I'm going to put in the rest of the broth. Again, we're going to get about 2 cups there, about 2 cups of broth. And then I just use this thing to kind of make sure there aren't any, we don't want any clumps. We don't want to see any flour clumps floating if there are. If there are flour clumps in there, you're going to have a search and rescue mission, or you're going to have a seek and destroy. You can't leave little clumps of flour in your soup. It's ugly. But we have successfully passed through that challenge, and we now have what looks like some fantastic cream of mushroom soup. I'm actually going to turn it up again now to get a boil on it, similar to it. I don't want a rolling boil. I don't want the stuff just abusing itself. What I want is a nice little boil, which we will then turn back down again and allow to simmer. Now, generally speaking, at this point, I will leave this go for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. Just let it bubble lightly. And what that does is it breaks down the mushrooms. Now, you don't have to do that, but I think it makes a better cream soup if you do. But we're going to shorten it up a little bit today because, first, I'm hungry, and secondly, we got a show to do here. And we're not just going to stand around stewing soup for an hour. We're going to get right down to it. I'm going to put the lid on here for a second, and we're going to let that baby go while I tell you a story or two about mushrooms and Grandma Verne's, what you can make with them. We have a couple of recipes. There's one called Wild Rice Baron. And if you haven't had Minnesota wild rice, Minnesota harvested wild rice, either in a wild rice soup or some other creation, you're really missing out. I'm going to do a show on wild rice here one of these days because it's fantastic. It makes a great soup. But a wild rice Baron is mushrooms and wild rice, and I think we've got some chicken and some bacon and Grandma Verne's and sour cream and soy sauce. It's an amazing combination, but it's very good. So we will make some of that in the future, and I'll show you guys how it's done. Let's just peek in here and see what we got. Oh, see, now we got some nice small bubbles going on. Small boil, not a big boil. You put it around the edge there. Look at that. Isn't that sweet? Just a little bubble around the edge. That's exactly what we want. Now, like I say, if I was going to make this for this afternoon's dinner, I'd probably give it another 10 minutes or so on the stove, just like this, before I add the cream. But it's flexible. So I'm going to turn it back down again. I don't want it to bubble too much with the cream in there. And then I'm going to take my half and half. And you can use half and half, or you can use whipping cream. It's up to you. They both work. I'm going to make a half a cup and pour it in. I'm going to stir it up a little bit here. Oh, yes. That is nice. Does that look good? Oh, does that ever look good? You should smell it. It is marvelous. Just fantastic. There we go. Now I'm going to dip a spoon in here and take a little out and do a little taste test just to make sure that everything is going according to plan. You shouldn't panic if I'm over here at the refrigerator because I don't have a fridge cam. All I got is a stove cam. I apologize. I do have a cocktail as well, and I'm sampling that as I go. And I apologize if it seems as though I've ignored you, but it's not true. I'm thinking about you all the time. You and the cream of mushroom soup. Look at how lovely that is. All right, let's get ourselves a soup spoon. And let's put this mother to the test. Let's put this baby to the test. Here we go. Soup spoon. Mr. Soup Spoon. Okay, I'm gonna. Now you'll see, this is a little bit thin for my normal cream of mushroom soup, but the mushrooms really haven't broken down very much yet. And that's what that extra 20 minutes of cooking will do, is it'll start to cream this out. You'll get the mushrooms kind of boiling down a little bit. You'll get the soup thickening up a little bit, and you'll find it just gets better and better. And then what you find out after that is when you don't eat it all, and believe me, that's not easy. You do, I'm going to put some more milk in there. You do, in fact, have to make a lot if you want to get to a point where you are done and haven't eaten it all. But if you get to that point and you put it in the refrigerator, it's just better the next day. Really, creamier, tastier, more mushroomy. It's fantastic. So I'm going to have a little taste here just to see what happened. You can see it right there. It's probably quite hot because, well, it's just about boiling. I'm going to take this for a little ride right now. Oh, that is sweet. I mean, not sweet, but savory. That is so, so good. Look at those little mushrooms in your hair. Now, the mushrooms are still got a little chew to them. And that's probably a little soon to serve this soup. Although, for mushroom lovers, it's hard to beat it just as it is. We're going to turn it down a little bit more. For a mushroom lover, this would be just fine. But if you want a real good cream of mushroom soup, this is going to take about an extra 20 minutes on the burner after you get to this point, over a medium-low heat. And what you're going to come up with is some of the most fantastic food you have ever tried. And be careful, if you make it for a girl, she might want to marry you. That's what happened to me. All right, everybody. It's been a pleasure talking to you once again today, and I hope you got something out of this cream of mushroom soup recipe, and I hope you come back, because there's going to be some more. Take care of yourselves.